Ashe family, welcome back to another episode of My Unapologetic Perspective. This is the podcast where we give our point of view of controversial topics from my experience, Black history, and the non-knowledge as African Americans. Black history presently lives in us so we can continue to excel into the future. It's one thing to know Black history. It's another thing to take advantage of what the people in Black history did for you. I am your host, Martre Baker Stevens, and to the right of me is Shaquan Battle.
Peace, God.
And to the right of him is Jerome Battle.
What's up?
We appreciate all the love and support we've been getting. Thank y'all. And it isn't a small thing to us with all of the love that people have been showing us in the comments on TikTok and YouTube. We gladly appreciate it. How are y'all?
Good.
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 Starting off, I want to start off with a rest in peace. 12-year-old Malaysia Solomon life was taken too soon. There are more details coming out about what happened, but she did die to a gunshot wound. The field report said that, there were guns found in the house, and then a video had surfaced of the mother dancing with the gun moments before she was shot and killed. But either way, it's another tragic death that we have to deal with for a young woman who should have been able to have a chance to grow up. And like I said, this hit harder because my daughter is the same age, and hearing that a child was killed by a gun, it just hit different, man. Also, a rest in peace to Tiana Major, a 9-year-old girl who was killed in a random mass shooting. She came in the house and said that he shot me, as the gunman broke into their home and shot her in the abdomen twice. He then came back to the scene and shot 2 reporters. His name was Keith Mawson. Hopefully they bury his ass under the jail. Mm-hmm. But just to start off, man, we have to start taking these things personally, with especially our kids are being killed. Every day you turn on the news, there's gun violence, and African Americans are at the opposite end of that gun, and we have to do a better job to protect our kids and our communities.
Absolutely.
What was the first shooting that you talked about? The 12-year-old?
Lynchburg.
Yeah,
I was local.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So today we're gonna talk about we're gonna do an overview or a recap of Black History Month, and of course that's the origins and the message of this podcast is Black history. So it's important that we kind of have a summary of what Black history means, or what it should mean, or what it doesn't mean, and to help people continue studying Black history even though the month of February is over. And let me start real quick, because I normally go to different schools and do Black History Month, and when I tell you there's no school that I've been to like Salem High School, I gotta give them a shout out. The African American History Culture Club, what they do is phenomenal, man. And the Black History Month celebration that was put together by the staff and the students, and the effort and the trust by the rest of the school. They trusted the African Americans to put together this assembly, and it's really one of the only assemblies that they do during the year, and that you choose to do it on Black History Month is huge. But they had elementary school and middle school kids do drawings and paintings of Black history, and had it posted all throughout the school. The Salem High School elite step team, oh boy, them girls went crazy. I hadn't seen HBCUs and fraternities and sororities step, and them high school girls put together their own routine, and boy, did they kill it. They had a guy that go up there and do a poem of Tupac Shakur. They had the choir sing, and boy, was it amazing. An amazing experience to be a part of. I wish more people could have seen it. I wish they videotaped the whole thing and put it out, because as a school, that's the way you represent Black History Month. So I had to give them a shout out.
Good.
I knew you was gonna do that, and I ain't gonna let you do it. Talk about Cause you was telling me about how the black elders came to you
Yeah.
after you speak on that.
That was the so the kids coming up to me. That was one of the first times where after I spoke at a school where I've had a line of kids come up to me and thank me, and even I was walking through the school and leaving out the building, there were kids, they like the bell that rung and the kids were on their way to class, and they was like a couple of kids dapped me up and say, "Yo, I loved your message." Like that was amazing. And that was the first time I really looked into the crowd and I could just see so many people hanging on to the edge of my words. Like that was just amazing to see. And then afterwards, what they do is they have the elders, people who have been a part of the school system and retired or from the community come in, and they have their own little section. And so when they came in, they weren't there for the first assembly, they were there for the second assembly. So I'm like, I know I got to bring it to second assembly because my elders are here, right? And afterwards, man, it was like a line. It was like they were beckoning me over. Come here, I want to talk to you. Come here, I want to talk to you. They like, hey, she want to talk to you. He want to talk to you. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I go and I shake hands and I hug, and they just thank me for putting the messages out there and thank me for what I was doing and how they loved what I said and did. And it was just an amazing experience. Like I literally lost my voice the next day because I had talked so much after I spoke that it was an amazing feeling.
Yeah, because when we talked, I said I could tell you left it all there because your voice sounded crazy.
I definitely lost my voice.
But that's dope for Salem to
Yeah,
do that.
because
that's your third year now.
Yeah, that was my third year because they didn't do anything for
COVID.
2 years because of COVID. So I went there right before the world shut down at COVID, like that very next week, and they hadn't done anything since. But I sent them a video last year and they played the video. But I know they said maybe like 10 years ago that Salem was like 2% black, and now they're like at 20% black. So you're just seeing the growth there, and like so many black people on the faculty and staff was like, well, we didn't even have black teachers when we came here, and just seeing the growth there. Because when I look at Salem, I think they're a lot like Liberty High School, like in essence. So as far as the culture and the community, so that's huge.
So do you see the change taking place? So when you go and you talk about certain things, and then you go back the next year, do you see any changes in
Man, let me tell you, right? So the last year I was there was 2020, and there were a couple of girls that were sophomores then that's now at HBCUs, that's now going into college, and then seeing the maturity level year to year, it's like crazy. Because like a lot of kids that when they were freshmen, I would hear Miss Jennings yelling at them, and then senior year they're the leaders, right? She the one that they're counting on to help run the things, and like that's just so important to see. And like the conversations I had with these kids as freshmen and sophomore from being seniors or in college now, you definitely see the growth. And that African American History Culture Club, I think all of the black students, well, at least 95% of the student body are in that culture club. You know, when we was in school, we didn't think about African American History Culture Club or Black History Culture Club. We wanted to do whatever was less convenient. Whatever you can do for 45 minutes to an hour when I ain't got to do nothing. And to have all of those kids in there with black teachers, that's going to hold them accountable and really inspire them. Like they go on trips to other HBCUs and all of that stuff, man. It's amazing. It's amazing.
You got to speak to the brothers, the twins.
Yeah, the twins.
When you went, they were sophomores when you first went, or juniors, or they might have been.
They were. When I first went, they were juniors. Because when I first went, it was just for the club, and then their senior year would have been the entire student body, and now I think they're sophomores at Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amazing experience.
That's good. You know, we often we talk about Black history, and we can go way back to the first episodes of this podcast where we talked about the imagery, the visuals, seeing people who look like you on the walls of your preschool or first grade classroom on the walls.
Yeah.
And seeing that Black people in America are far much more than what we're depicted as, which is slavery and then, of course, being subordinates. So we often talk about change. Even during the civil rights movement, we talk about change. What was the change? Well, the change that happened with the civil rights movement was no more than us getting what was already allotted to us by the 13th Amendment, right? 14th Amendment. So with that said, when I think about everything that's been going on in America within the last 10 to 15 years, what has changed? We can talk about a lot of things have changed. We are protesting a lot more. Mm-hmm. We are protesting in peace a lot more, and not necessarily having the rioting and the looting and all those things that's associated with protesting. Mm-hmm. In fact, the last few protests for the same type of things, brutality against unarmed black men, the protests have been very, very lawful. Yeah. And we can take pride in that, because obviously when you don't do that, it takes away from the cause. Mm-hmm. What's the cause of the protest? But in addition to that, what other things have happened because of the voice of the black communities? Mm-hmm. And I also want to talk about something specific, because we talk about prison reform mm-hmm. a lot. But let's talk about what happens for the wrongly convicted. And we know that when you look at things disproportionately, so let me make that statement. So when we look at the way that things happen to black people, if you're small, you make up a small part of the population, but it happens to you at a high rate. Yeah. That's what that means. I just want to talk a few minutes about something, because I had two things that I thought about when we were talking about this follow-up podcast, and I made a couple notes, and I want to go through them real quick. And this is just the first part of what I wanted to talk about when we do a recap, because I think it's important that we always go back and try to find out if anything has happened. Mm-hmm. What has all of these protests, the voice from the black community, getting more black politicians and starting having more seats at the table in communities, what has happened? I'm just gonna go through a few, because there's a lot, and I'm not gonna go through all of them. But exonerated blacks who have been wrongly convicted in prison for many years. And there's a lot of them, but like I said, I'm not gonna go through all of them, but I want to talk about a few. Let's start with where you at? Hold on. Ralph Blaine Smith. He was in jail for 21 years for a crime that he didn't commit. They just overturned that, and he's a free man today. We can talk about Raymond Flanks, 39 years incarcerated for a crime he didn't commit. Bear with me for 1 second.
Take your time. Take your time, brother.
Take your time. I want to make sure that I get a couple. Lamar Johnson spent most of his life, 28 years, behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. And all of these cases are being overturned within the last 5 years. Thomas James served 32 years, wrongly convicted for a crime he didn't commit. Served 32 years. That's older than you are, babe.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it amazes me. Vincent Simmons, wrongly convicted for attempted aggravated rape in the 70s. And they're just now overturning his conviction. But there's two more I want to get to that I think are important. Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam. These were two followers of the Nation of Islam who were convicted of crimes in 1965. Mm-hmm. That were just recently overturned, mm-hmm. thanks to the daughter of Malcolm X, mm-hmm. who played a pivotal role in helping these individuals get their sentences overturned. So when you think about what has all the voices from Black America and Black communities, what has it done for black people. Well, here's a good example of what it's done. Without that noise, this doesn't happen. Without podcasts like this doesn't happen. Without us bringing, so in doing Black History Month, because obviously that's when we started this podcast, and you started a Black History podcast, talking about history and the relevance of black people in American history and what has been done to black people. Talking about that makes black people think we are worthy. We are worthy. Even if I've been wrongly convicted, there is an opportunity for me to find justice, even in a system that we know is geared against us. It can happen if you get enough people who are talking about the injustices, the inequalities of this system. If you get enough people to talk about it, eventually you're going to have some people that believe. Now, obviously, when we talk about that, there are people who absolutely love America and they love the law system. And they realize that it's geared towards black people. However, they understand that the same laws that convicted you are the same laws that I can help get you exonerated, because they love America and they love this system. So not everybody disagrees with the system, but even those that agree with the system knows that it can be used against black Americans. And they don't necessarily agree with that. Not that they love black people. I'm not going to even say that, but I'm saying that is that they love the law enough to know that this is wrong. And I think having voices like ours and the millions of people who talk about black history on a regular basis, talking about our relevance in this country, makes a difference. And I think that's a great example of where it's made a difference. In addition to that, I was telling Vic yesterday, and I hadn't had a chance to look it up, but they're creating a federal investigation bureau specifically for missing black women and black girls.
And we did an episode last year about that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, people talking about this has made change happen. Change that is ultimately going to help the black community and people in the black community.
Absolutely. I'll let you.
I was going to say, the last part that you brought up, last night I was scrolling through the Fire Stick on the movie thing, and it was a movie came up. I think it's called The Missing Girl. What's Fancy's real name from the Jamie Foxx?
Giovanni.
Yeah, so she's the main actor. So I click on it and I read the description, and the description is little black girl go missing, but they don't report her missing until after 72 hours because they're trying to find a little white girl first. So that's funny that when you brought that up, that just replayed in my mind.
When you said you want to talk about this, one thing that came to mind is, okay, we could talk about Black history. We could talk about Carter G. Woodson and the development of Black History Week that led into Black History Month. And we could talk about those accomplishments, and we could talk about all of the achievements and the names and the dates and all of those great things. And we talked about we talked about it a couple weeks ago, how you just seen this Black History Month that there wasn't much involvement from the rest of America in talking about Black History Month this month. And one of the reasons why is because a lot of the information has been changing so much that we've gone from that normalcy of just Dr. King and Frederick Douglass to now you begin to talking about other things. And part of that is what you talked about, is because when you begin to talk about Black history for a long time, of names and dates and events, eventually more people are going to do more research inside of those things. And that will lead you to politics. That will lead you to amendments. That will lead you to policies and procedures and the law and the government and the justice system and the systematic racism and all of these other things. Because the more you dig deeper into it,
that's right,
the more you begin to be exposed to more information, which is why I don't think white America had a problem with creating Black History Month. Because if we can do 28 days of just talking about Black history, that leads us to 11 months of not worrying about Black people talking about this, right? So if you could just limit that, and then we could be able to do whatever we want to do from there. That means we don't have to put it in the textbook. We don't have to put it into our curriculum. We could just have that 1 month, and we'll celebrate it in a way that we want to celebrate it and control it. there's been a huge myth that we've created so much change and progress. Have we created change and progress? But the main quote I like to quote is that we've come so far, but we haven't come so far.
That's right.
Right? When you think about a lot of things that happened in America, the notion that is ancient history. It's not ancient history. For an example, there was a guy by the name of Daniel Smith that died last year. He was considered to be the last son of an enslaved person. He was born in 1931. His father was born in 1863, which would have made him the last descendant of an enslaved person. Mm-hmm. So we can go back to last year of one man that has a history. Just go back to slavery, just one generation.
One generation.
Right? Ruby Bridges is still alive. Claudette Colvin is still alive. Dorothy Counts is still alive. Mm-hmm. Mae Jemison isn't just the first African American who orbited into space. Mm-hmm. She's still alive. Bobby Seale from the Black Panther Party is still alive. John Lewis died in 2020. Rosa Parks died in 2005. Mamie Till in 2003. Ali in 2016. We have not come but so far.
That's right.
We like to think that these people are ancient when a lot of them are alive or a lot of them just recently died. That's right. I think if Dr. King and Malcolm X were still alive, they may be in their 90s or something like that, right? You know, if you believe that we've come so far, I want everybody to Google search how many black governors have been elected in the United States.
That's right. It's a small number.
You're going to be able to count it on one hand. Yeah. On one hand.
And actually, Virginia was one of the first.
One of the first, yeah. So when you talk about black governors being elected, you can be able to count that on one hand.
And we talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Right.
We're still talking about the first.
We're still fighting for that educational system of true integration, right? Integration from them.
3.
Huh?
3.
We're still fighting for true integration beyond rosters.
That's right.
If you look at a roster, yeah, you're going to have black kids and white kids sitting together. But true integration is not just integration into the schools, it's integration within the curriculum.
That's right.
Right? How many classic black authors do you read about in English class?
One, probably. Well, two, if you include Maya Angelou. But Langston Hughes.
You may read a poem about Langston Hughes.
You're going to read about Langston.
But you're not going to read a book by Toni Morrison. You're not going to read a book by James Baldwin.
No.
You're not going to read Zora Hurston.
No.
You're not going to read.
You might read Zora if you're up north.
Not down here. Yeah. No, you're not going to read it in the South.
You're
not going to read it in the South, especially the. No. You're not going to know. No. It's because you're not. You're just not going to read it.
Yeah.
Imagine, right? Because even with the integration of our educational system, right? Even if we go back to Florida, that governor, and the reason why I brought up governor, he has the ability to say, no, that studies cannot be taught in Florida.
And he did that.
How many elected black governors have we had?
3.
Imagine if the tables were turned. Not even from a governor's standpoint. Imagine if white people had to take U.S. history curriculum and give it to a board members of black people, and we had to approve for that to be taught in schools. Imagine if they had to give it to the Native Americans. Mm-hmm. Imagine if they had to do that. I guarantee most of the history that's taught would not be taught, right? Because we wouldn't agree that that's important information.
Or that's truthful.
Or valuable.
That's right.
In their words.
That's right.
And the fact that we have to submit
what the curriculum is going to be.
Our history.
Yeah. What would the curriculum be? Yeah, we don't approve of it.
And then you can say, this is fine, but take this out, take this out, take this out. That is control of the educational system.
It's more than that. That is white supremacy.
That's exactly what it is.
That's white supremacy. That's what it is.
That is a control factor.
That's right. And you're spot on. This is funny too. I forgot to tell you, but I was in Walmart the other day, and a kid came up to me and said, "Hey, I really like that presentation you did at our school."
Yeah.
They thought it was you, but we're on the same lines on this, because one of the other things that I wanted to point out is, how do we get here? How do we get to where we are right now? And I think this is important because you see certain things happen. In fact, I thought about it watching a preseason baseball game the other day. So with the rule changes, I watched the Boston Red Sox still do a shift, but not with the infield. They did it with an outfielder. They moved the left fielder over to play shallow right between center field and right field. Same thing they used to do. They should use the infielders to do it. They just use the outfielders, because the rule states the infielder has to have their feet in the dirt. So they just move the outfielder. So there's always a way within the system to do what you want to do, to accomplish whatever goal it is you want. It's more about the fuck can I get away with, right?
Yeah.
So when I look at history, I'm going to point out something that is how we got to where we are. Compromise of 1877 is huge to the black community that people probably don't even think about. So this is after the Reconstruction period.
Rutherford Hayes.
Hayes. That's right.
I forgot what the other guy's name was.
Neither one got enough for the electoral votes to be elected president of the United States. So they had the was it the House of Representatives have to decide who the president is going to be. And they agreed that Rutherford Hayes would be the president based on a compromise.
Yeah.
Because the South was the one who said, we ain't going for it. So just so people understand, the Electoral College is in effect so that you don't have states with a lot of people controlling the election.
Yeah.
So if you have states that have a lot of people and most of those people are going to be white, they can't necessarily control who's going to be president of the United States. So you use the Electoral College. That's just a little American history for government thinkers. All right. But in the compromise, what it was, the number 5 of the compromise was that they would remove all of the troops from the South. So people say, well, why were there still troops in the South? Because they were still practicing what they called then black codes in the South.
This was also during the Reconstruction period.
Absolutely. Yeah. To prevent blacks from being prominent, being able to vote, being able to own houses, being able to live in communities where white people were, being able to go to stores that white people went to. They were using these black codes to do that. And by having the army there, the troops there, they were able to enforce the real legislation, which is you can't do that.
Federal
so
law.
They had to allow black people to vote. You had to allow black people to be able to do certain things. So with this compromise, it removed the troops.
Yeah.
Guess what happened? Jim Crow laws came into effect.
Basically what it was is that we let us deal with black people the way we know how to deal with black people, and you take the White House.
Absolutely. And that was in the compromise, that we will deal with black people the way we want to deal with black people in the South. Now, states in particular, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, these were states where the troops were at that were part of the compromise to pull those troops out. And what did it do? It immediately disenfranchised black Americans.
Right, hold on one second. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. And we are back. You continue.
Yeah, so in studying black history, and just, and you touched on it too, Bake, is that it seems like every year you see people doing less and less for black history. And people say, why? Well, part of it we caused. Because the minute you start talking about Martin Luther King, you start talking about Malcolm X, and you start talking about the civil rights movement, we say, oh, we already know that. So they stop doing it, right? Because most of the time, it's white people that are trying to demonstrate or do whatever they can for Black History Month. It's not usually black people, it's white people. And they're doing the best that they can. And then we ridicule them for doing it, right? So we said, well, why don't you talk about Benjamin Banneker? Well, fuck, they don't know about Benjamin Banneker. We didn't know about Benjamin Banneker. So you can't expect them. They're not going to do any homework.
Right.
We're not even going to do any homework. So you can't expect them to do it. But I had a guy from our last episode. He sent me a message and said, you guys always say you can't talk about American history without talking about black history. And he said, well, guess what? you can't talk about Black American history without talking about American history. Okay, if that's true, why don't you teach it in school?
Right.
If that's true. If that's true, then why don't you teach the truth in school? Well, here's the thing. The Compromise of 1877, how many people learned about this in school?
No, you can't. Because here's the thing. The horrors of Black history is the celebration of American history.
That's right.
And then the horrors of American history is the celebration of Black history. That's right.
That's right.
Cut that down.
That's right.
Cut the camera.
That's right.
Because, again, when you talk about Black history, we always talk about the stories, right? And what makes a story the story is the triumph, the adversity, and what they overcame. And most of the time in Black history, they overcame the white supremacy that came with it. So again, when you begin to talk about, let's just look at Dr. King, since they love Dr. King so much, let's just look at him as an example. That Dr. King marched for voting rights and integration, and they sung songs and they held hands, and all of that looks good. But then when you go deeper into the story, you see that they were being beaten by police officers. That leads you down another rabbit hole, right? Then you will look at, well, why didn't they pass laws that if the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, what did that mean? That they had the right to vote? Because a lot of people believe that gave them the right to vote. No, they had the right to vote. They didn't have the right to practice it.
That's right.
All right, so what made them stop being allowed to practice? And that goes back to what you said about the Jim Crow and the Compromise of 1877.
That's right.
So when you begin to look deeper into the history, you begin to find American history.
That's right.
And when you find American history, it isn't so glamorous as you looked at it through the lenses of white America.
That's right. And the reason you don't learn about the Compromise of 1877 is because, once again, it depicts white America as this brutal white supremacy organization that it is. That this Constitution of the United States and all the laws that we live by today was built on. So when you start talking about teaching American history, if you're teaching the truth, it's going to show you in the light that you are, which are white supremacy. It's going to show that. So if the information is not true, if the Compromise of 1877 was not true, how does it exist? How is it part of the government platform if it didn't? It does exist. And I'm not making up what number 5 stated. It's in there. That's exactly what
they would say is that the Compromise of 1877 is about states' rights.
Yeah, and it was about states' rights.
States' rights to do whatever they wanted
to do. Do whatever they wanted to do. And again, I'll repeat this. This was, how did we get to where we are? You hear me talk about when one Republican state does something so egregious that negatively impacts Black Americans disproportionately to our counterparts. Other states do the same. It's sort of that, what the fuck can I get away with? What can I get away with? And then other states watch and say, oh shit, they got away with that shit.
Yeah,
we can do the same thing. Just watch what I'm telling you. It's already happened. And what they did is when this thing first started happening and people started getting wind of it, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there was nobody propagating for it. There was no advocates. You didn't see any protests for Juneteenth Day. Yeah. All of a sudden, Juneteenth Day. Most people knew what the fuck Juneteenth Day was. You got that because they was trying to take you away from the fact that as that was happening in over 100 different areas across the United States, they was passing legislation for voter suppression that disproportionately affects Black people. What can I get away with? That's what America's been built on. Black codes offset slavery. Jim Crow laws offset Black codes. Right?
Mass incarceration.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, this has been what's been going on. So how did we get here? It was established with slavery, Black codes, Compromise of 1877, all the way up to present day. This is part of the plan. Folks, you can't make this up. You can't make this up. This country was built on white supremacy. And the Constitution is the outline. That's the blueprint.
Yeah.
That's the blueprint. So what we're doing and what so many people have been doing in America for the last 20 plus years regarding Black history is that we've been waking up folks.
We've been waking up folks, and we've been self-education.
That's right.
Right? Because we always say on this podcast that education is the equalizer. And we're not always talking about just K through 12 and getting a diploma and a degree. We're not just talking about that. That self-education is one of the most important things you can do. So most people say, well, what does that even mean? What does self-education, and how can I self-educate myself? And here's a few things, and y'all feel free to jump in whenever. Number one thing that it does is find out what information they withheld from you, right? Because there is a starting point, and we can start with what they give us. You can start with, like I said earlier, you can start with Dr. King, and then once you get into the civil rights movement, start really looking deeper into his messages. Start reading Dr. King's books after 1863, after 1864, after 1965. I'm sorry. Right. So once you further your research, you will land on Dr. King from 1965 to 1968, and they had every opportunity to assassinate him in 1959 to 1965, and they didn't do it. So what made them assassinate him in 1968? What changed? Right? They don't show him meeting with Ali to say, no, I agree with him. He shouldn't go fight in Vietnam. With Elijah Muhammad, with questioning Lyndon B. Johnson on why are you sending troops to Vietnam and we got poor people right here. He starts talking about economic development. That's why he was assassinated and killed. When you study Malcolm X, you have to look at the footnotes of Marcus Garvey. So if you begin to read Malcolm X and Black history, you're going to land upon Marcus Garvey. When you research Rosa Parks on not giving up her seat, it's going to lead you to the Montgomery bus boycott. It's going to lead you to the economic development of what happened in America during that 300 and something days, right? What movies have you watched and researched after you watched it? Like, you can't just take Hollywood's account for it. You should do further research other than that. Read more than one book on the subject. Read multiple people's viewpoints on it and come to your own conclusion of what that means. Read different articles. Don't just read, like when you watch the news, don't just watch Fox News take on it. Go see what CNN say about it. And then you form your own conclusion about all of the evidence that you've gathered for your own brain, right? People be saying in our comments, like they be saying a lot of stuff. And sometimes I'll go research it. Like, okay. And I may come back and say, yeah, I didn't know that. I appreciate the information. I might come back and say, what I like to say is you full of shit and stop trolling me.
That's right.
Because what you said is some bullshit. But I always try to do my own homework, right? Because there's nothing, we are surrounded by information, but we have little intelligence about things, right? You can sign up for classes. There are many people who do classes. I love Dr. Kaba. Dr. Kaba has a lot of classes on his online. Go just find Black history stuff and sign up for the classes, and you go at your own pace online. You probably could pay $80, $90 and you'll get a whole curriculum that you can do at your own pace, and they'll probably give you readings and books that you can go out and buy and then teach it. That's right. After you get the information, teach it. That's what we do on this podcast. I can't even, a few years ago, I wouldn't be able to tell you. Now I know dates. I know the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the Compromise of 1877. I know all this stuff because we have said it numerous times on the podcast. Because when you begin to teach stuff, you begin to learn it. I know what the 13th Amendment is. I know what all that stuff is, because once you begin to learn the information, you begin to give that information to others, it's going to become repetitive toward you. It's going to lock into your brain. And then the more and more you talk about it, the more and more it becomes normal for you. And be inspired. You know what I'm saying? Be inspired, but you don't have to agree with everything that people say. You can form your own conclusion and listen to people and form your own conclusion on what they say. Do I like Dr. Umar? He's very knowledgeable. Do I agree with everything he says? No. Do I like Rizza Islam? Yes. Do I agree with everything he says? No. And a lot of times as black people, we follow these people and we think that we have to agree with everything that they say. We think all of their viewpoints have to be our viewpoints. No. I need you to find out what you truly believe in, what you truly do by studying those things that they're talking about. Don't just take our word for it on this podcast. Go do your own research.
That's right. I agree. You know, and I think for me, I think that's one thing that just this podcast alone has helped me with is it puts you in a situation where you don't want to talk about something you don't fully understand, and you don't want to talk about things that you can't provide some good information regarding, and give people a good foundation for them to start their research.
Right.
So it, of course, makes you work harder to make sure that you're reading the right books, you're getting the right information, because you can Google a subject and you can get two different perspectives. Yeah. Sometimes you can get multiple perspectives, but you have to dig deeper to find out which one is the truth. Yeah. Which one has more reference points that make sense. Yeah. Because there are some things that you can read and people just take it for what it is and go, that got to be the truth. Yeah. Not necessarily. It just sounds good.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it's the truth.
And a lot of people say that we can assume just from this information, we can assume, but a lot of things you got to fact check on your own.
You got to fact check on yourself. And the great thing about when we cite things regarding law and constitution, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And you can Google it, and I guarantee you're going to come up with the same information that we come up with.
Yeah.
Because it's part of the record of this government, the foundation, the blueprint. So what we're saying is true. Now, white Americans going to say, well, do you have to say white supremacy? Yeah.
Yes.
People sometimes think that white supremacy means
white people, and it don't.
White people. It doesn't. It just means anti everything else.
Yeah.
Right? That's all that means, is that the government, one, we're still not recognized as human beings, still to this day. Mm-hmm. Do you really think that people could savagely beat? And I'll just be honest with you. I've been in many fights in my life, but I ain't never kicked nobody in the face. Mm-hmm. To kick somebody in the face, that's like some deep-rooted hatred. Right. That's like an animal, right? Mm-hmm. Years ago, you can do that to a dog. You can't do that to a dog now. But guess who you can do it to?
Black people.
You do it to black people.
Yeah.
You can do it to a black person. Oh, that's fine. But now don't kick the dog. Okay? I give you, this is not a great example, but it's an example that fits. What's the running backs, the wide receiver's name for the Raiders that came from Alabama?
That was in the car.
Yeah. And I can't remember his name. Henry.
Yeah, I think his name. Something.
Henry Ruggs.
Henry
Ruggs. Car accident that killed
the woman and the dog.
Killed the woman and the dog. They make it a point
to say the dog. They make it a point. But let 3 black individuals get killed in a home. We had 3 individuals get killed in a home, a woman and 2 men. Mm-hmm. You don't get no names. They get the name of the dog, right? Yeah. The name of the dog that died in the car accident, they give you the name. Don't tell me that this country does not despise black people. You know, the funny thing is, one of the things in a lot of comments on TikTok is white supremacy is so strong that we as technically black people are still arguing about what do we call ourselves.
Yeah.
Because people have been saying we shouldn't say black people, we shouldn't say African American, like we shouldn't say anything.
That's our fault.
Like it's so strong that we've been so far removed from our history. This is important. We've been so far removed from our history that here in 2023 we are still trying to figure out who the hell we are.
Yeah, it's amazing because I think about NAACP and the word colored people, the phrase colored people. We hated that term.
We were from nigga,
Negro,
colored to Negro,
African American to black,
free man.
Yeah. Can we make? Here's the thing. It doesn't matter what you call it. You know, they're gonna treat you the way you look.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You know, and this is off topic a little bit, but it's a true statement. You know, so you have, when it comes to gender, you can have people say, hey, I don't identify as a male or female. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And you have laws to protect you. Mm-hmm. You have things that'll protect you. But if I say, I want to be white, I want to be identified as white. You identify as whatever you want to. You feel white,
as you black.
You let me catch you speed and we'll show you what it feels like to be black. We'll bring you right back to reality.
You know, Idris, the actor, recently came out and said that he didn't want to be considered as a
Nigerian.
black actor.
Black actor.
Black actor. He just wanted to be an actor. And boy, was they in his comments on TikTok. But and Twitter. You can identify as an actor all you want to, but when it comes for time for a role, you're going to be a black actor regardless. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, Hollywood is going to look at you like that. If they want, like, I know even Michael B. Jordan said he didn't want to take like the black roles. Like, they have specific black roles that they want black people to take.
Right.
And he said he don't want those roles. He want the white people roles, which means I can expound out on what it is. Like, I don't have to be from this particular character.
That's right.
Or whatever, which is a good mindset to have. But at the end of the day, when it's time to create that black character into a movie, they're going to look for a black actor.
That's
or
right.
you're a black actor, they're going to make it correlate to you as a black person. You're not going to be able to be James Bond and be James Bond,
right?
Idris.
You're gonna be the black James Bond.
Yeah.
The thing is we create some of these stereotypes. We also create some of the confusion because you wanna be considered as an actor, and I get it. You want to be considered as an actor.
We want to be considered as American.
That's right.
We want to remove that thing, but it's not going to happen.
Right. And the thing is, does it matter? So what? You considered as a black actor? Take that with pride.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. And this is gonna fuck people up. You want to be Black James Bond. You want to be James Bond, not the black one. You just want to be James Bond, right?
Yeah.
What if they got a white? Let's say they got Mark Wahlberg to play Muhammad Ali. Would
Yeah.
you have a problem with that?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And people say, well, Muhammad Ali is a real person. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you want to be, if you can play the role of a white actor, why can't a white actor play the role of a black person?
It's not like Denzel said. It's not about race. It's about culture.
It's about culture.
So, and that James Bond is a culture, and the only way that you can add a black James Bond is if you change the entire culture
to a black
Yeah.
James Bond.
Yeah.
Right? So, I think we create some of these issues that we have, and then we get upset when America referred to what we said we wanted them to call us.
Yeah.
Like colored people and Negro and African American. And I saw where somebody, an actor, didn't want to be called a black actor, or didn't even want to be recognized as African American. He wanted to be recognized as Nigerian because that's where his ancestors came from. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Good luck with that.
The moment you step foot in this country, you black.
I just don't understand. We cause division within our own race. For what? For what purpose? You want to? O.J. Simpson did it, and then when he was on trial, all of a sudden he wanted us to accept him back, and we did because we felt like he was being framed. I don't think anybody really thought about, did this nigga really do it or not?
Yeah.
It was more about the system, white system, was framing a black guy. And people applauded when he got found not guilty, not even realizing two people lost their lives, right? And we applauded because it was not about the two people who was about that got murdered. It was about the fact that white America was framing this black person, right? So a lot of the things that happen in the black community, we cause. A lot of the stereotypes, we cause. A lot of the confusion, we cause this shit.
The same thing happened with the TV show Bel Air when they found out Hillary was being played by Coco Jones, who was a dark-skinned woman. It was an uproar about
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
Because Hillary was light-skinned on the TV show.
That's right.
In current news, Scott Adams called black people a hate group, and I guess he was a cartoonist for some papers.
Not just some papers. Dilbert.
Yeah.
That's huge, man. He's been in the newspaper all my life.
Yeah. And he went on a rant and said that black people are a hate group
Hate
and
group.
that white people should get far
away from
black people.
Yeah. You know what they did? Cancel that ass.
Yeah.
The sad thing is if you go back and look at the cartoons, I mean, he put it in his cartoons. I mean, it was obvious.
Yeah.
He just never... See, this is where social media has been a problem for some people. Because he was obvious in his scripts that he had some prejudices, right? But because he didn't come out and say anything, it was okay.
Yeah.
But the minute he comes out and says it, and it's not because any of the newspapers disagree. It's because, oh shit, we can't have this nigga sticking because this is gonna cost us money.
Man.
So far, it's only been one company that said we don't give a fuck about the money, and that's been Adidas.
Yeah.
They simply said, okay, you gonna lose $1 billion, we're gonna lose a lot more than that, but we ain't standing for this shit.
It's business,
right?
not personal.
Yeah, this business, not personal. They've been the only company that just came out and said, now I don't know if they would have did that if Kanye was white. But I don't know. All I know is they did it regardless and said we're gonna stand to lose billions, but we're okay with that.
Yeah.
Most companies aren't standing to lose billions.
But I think Adidas is talking to Kanye again.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
They
I'm pretty sure
they lose
that
too much
they
money.
want to give you a second chance because everybody make mistakes, and that's the approach they probably going to take.
Yeah.
But they did do the right thing at the beginning, and if they renegotiate with somebody who may have a change of heart, if Kanye come back and say, "Hey, I've been misquoted, or people took what I said wrong, let me clarify," I can understand that. I'm just sick of people doing that. I'm sick of people making statements and then coming back and trying to clarify about what they really meant. Did you mean it because you lost billions of dollars, or did you mean it? I mean, did you want to take it back because you really feel that you were wrong?
Right.
Why are you taking it back? I'm looking at the $1 billion now.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't care what he says now. I'm looking at the $1 billion.
But Scott Adams said, after he made the comment, was that everyone should be treated as an individual without discrimination. He's not being discriminated against. He's being treated equally. This is equality.
That's right.
When you say some bullshit, now you get the repercussions of bullshit, right? And a lot of times they don't react to it. Is because we talked about when that privilege is being threatened. Because you used to get away with this shit, right? But now that we're trying to get equality and more people are understanding and the counseling and firing and we're not allowing that, they don't know how to react to it.
That's right.
So now they call it discrimination, is because that once control that you had, you no longer have, and it shocks them. And people who, I'm not gonna say that they don't think that they're racist. They may not believe that they have racist viewpoints when they express themselves, and then the rest of the world look at it and say, hey, that's some bullshit.
That's right.
They feel threatened because this is the way that they were raised. This is the way that they thought all their life. And it wasn't until they came out publicly and said some things that they realized that their way of thinking is controversial.
Yeah, and it's in a lot of systems in America, and I'm gonna give you a good example. I am a Mark Wahlberg fan. I like Mark Wahlberg, and I do realize that there's some things in his past that he did that I'm sure he's not proud of today. For people that don't know, he did some time for doing things against Asians and even blacks.
Yeah.
He used to demean blacks and got in a fight where he kicked and punched and all kinds of things to black individuals.
Well, he grew up in Boston.
That was my point. Not only did he make mistakes, but he came from an environment that's what they did. That's how they treated people who were not white.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted Jerry Jones to say when they found that photo,
absolutely.
but he didn't.
So, but with that said, so he gave an award a couple weeks ago to an Asian actor, which I thought was, I don't know if that was a pun or if that was something that they thought about before they did it, but having discriminated against Asians as a youth, and then now he's given an award to an Asian person, you can look at it as reconciliation. I don't know. But where was Will Smith? So I just think sometimes, and maybe what Will did is too soon, or do we treat our black actors, no matter where they are in terms of popularity, do we treat black actors differently than we do white actors? Because obviously, I even remember a time where you guys don't remember this, but I remember John Wayne even made remarks about black people, but he made remarks about them at the award ceremony and was able to walk out on stage and do all kinds of things. He was never banned. You can see it in every phase where when we talk about the first, how many black NFL owners?
Zero.
How many black NBA owners?
Zero.
How many Major League Baseball?
Zero.
So
You
and then you can go down from there. How many black head coaches of the NFL? How many black head coaches of NBA? How many black managers of Major League Baseball? We can go down the line where we're still counting the numbers of black people that are being treated drastically different than whites, but yet we make up the bigger pool, except for baseball. That's going to be still non-white, but it's non-black too, because they're going to be foreign in terms of the players. However, they're going to be treated
when they
just
step
like
into this damn country.
people.
They black. Them Dominicans are black when they step into this damn country.
Because that's how they're going to be treated. You
You seen that? What was it? Year before last with Marcel Ozuna.
That's right.
For the Atlanta Braves.
Treated differently. Then what's the picture?
Down there you can go by your little Spanish ancestry, but when you step into this country, we're gonna go by your skin tone, brother.
Yeah. So I just see every day in different aspects of this country where blacks are still treated drastically different than whites. Now, as Baker said, have we made progress? Yes. Have we made progress? No. So we have to just continue. We got to continue to fight, and you continue to fight by doing what we're talking about doing. Continue to talk about it, continue to educate yourself, and continue to bring up things when you're being treated unfairly in your life, and encouraging other people to do the same thing.
That's the wrapper right there. Appreciate y'all. Peace.